yourself.
So me and Archie are the delivery coordinators who work majority on the Digital Champion Network. So I'm sure if you've ever received an email, it's most likely been from one of us. So what we're going to do is we're just going to walk you through a few of the statistics that we've got for this year to show all the great work that our champions and you guys have been doing. So yeah. So just let me know you can see it, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to be talking through recruitment, the types of support you guys offer, and highlight a few things about the hub sessions, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So,
hi guys, it's lovely to see some of you, some familiar faces. So I just wanted to break down some of the recruitment that we've had this year over all of the districts across the county of Kent. Starting off in first place, we do have Maidstone with a 14.5 increase from the previous year, and Canterbury with a 14.1 increase in champions than last year, and finally with Medway with a 10.2. These are the areas that we're continuously working towards, giving support, helping the communities and bridging that digital divide. Are you able to go to the next slide? Thank you. This is the reporting of the kind of support that you've all been giving to the communities and the individuals that you're continuously supporting. As you can see, we've had 40 residents with device usage, around 18 using and getting familiar with emails, and 42 or so using online services and getting that support. Online safety has been a big part, but again it's still on a lower end, as well as the NHS app. The previous year we did have a large increase with inquiries with finding support with the NHS app, but since we've stopped doing our NHS workshops, we haven't had much of a inquiry about that. Again, we've got other software as well as assorted inquiries which would require digital support. This is all reported through the session feedback form that we do ask you to fill in after each session that you support, and that does give us a great benefit, so we do see what kind of support you are giving and which areas that we can train you and give you better support in.
Yeah, so then we have a bit of a champion spotlight. So in 2025, we recruited 85 new champions, and a few are on the call. So that's been really good in terms of our increasement, because we've seen that quite a few people who also run volunteering networks haven't been seeing any increases. It's not really a great year for volunteering, so we're always happy with the volunteers that we have, and also that we are recruiting quite a large number. And then in 2025, over 402 hubs took place, which was majority run by our digital champions. So that's 402 sessions of people getting support and that help that they need to be digitally included, which is so amazing. And then we had 209 hours of intervention logged on the champion feedback form, which means that over half of the champions are using our feedback form. So it'd be great if you have given support and you want to use that feedback form a bit more. We really would like that, especially as you can see, we've done 402 digital hubs, but we only have 209 hours logged, so we only understand that 209 part of support, and if we knew the other half of it, then we'd be able to properly train and give more resources to some other issues that you're looking at when you are given that support. And we also see that there is further support given, so there's 33% of further support given through energy. So as you can see, that's probably from our energy champions, which we've been running. So that's really great to know that people are out in the community getting that energy support, especially coming up to this time of year. We also see a lot of finance support given to other people, given extra. Like I say, once again, that's really great, especially knowing the time of year that we're in, the cost of living crisis. It's great that there is that financial support being handed to people, vulnerable residents. And we also saw fraud awareness, and this was something that came up as things that people would like to see going forward, and having a bit more understanding and given so that they can give the right and correct support, which is why we have our speakers here today to help train you guys and give you guys just a bit more information on what you can do when it comes to that fraud awareness. So yeah, so that's it, and we just wanted to say a massive thank you to all the champions and all of you on the call for all the work and support that you put in, that extra support given to people. It really is a lifeline for those who might be lonely or might not have the right skills, might need it to enter a workforce or just to connect with family. So it's really great, and we really do appreciate you. So thank you very much to our champions.
And then can I confirm you can see that slide?
Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Excellent. Okay, so I will get going today. And some of the things that we're going to cover is changing the stigma around fraud. So that's a big ask from us to you, and hopefully you can do the same when you're engaging with the community. We'll talk through vishing, smishing and phishing, which are the main attack routes to fraud. And if you haven't heard of these, we'll explain what they are as well. Some of the other frauds we'll talk about as well is career fraud and romance fraud. We'll then go through what makes people susceptible to fraud, the indicators, and then how we can prevent people from becoming fraud and where to report it. So I thought I'd start off with a quick overview. So fraud itself is actually 42% of crime. Yet actually, I think the stats say that only 13% of people actually report fraud. So that shows how big it is. And this slide here shows you last year, so May 24 to May 25. These numbers are just Kent. So 11,268 reports just in Kent with 15 million loss. So we can see the substantial amount of money that people are losing to fraud. And it also says that 1 in 3 victims of fraud will become a repeat victim. And that tends to be by recovery fraud. There's also a term which is not very nice called a suckers list. And any time a criminal gets any activity or any information about you, they package it all together and they sell it on the dark web. So they ultimately put you on a list that makes you susceptible to becoming a repeat victim. So one of the biggest things that we're going to ask of you today is to help change the stigma of fraud. So some of the things that people say that the reason they don't report it are some of these things that are showing up on the slide here. In our role, we speak to lots of victims of fraud, and when we're out in the community doing talks like this, we change it up slightly to the community, but people are telling us that they're victims and they haven't reported it, and these are some of the reasons. But ultimately, as you can see there, fraud is a crime. So we need to start changing the way people see it. People don't say I've fallen for that burglary or things like that. So we need to start changing the language a little bit. Instead of fallen for a scam, you're a victim of crime. And the criminals are good at what they do. You know, they're not picking up the phone and dialing your number. They're putting loads of numbers in a software and it's contacting 1,000 people at once. So these criminals are very sophisticated. So we need to start changing that stigma. So let's go through some of the types of fraud. So as you can see here, we've got vishing, smishing, phishing and quishing. All very random names that sound very similar, but they all mean different things. So vishing is scam calls. They've done the V for voice. Smishing is text message fraud. So SMS, that's why they went for smishing. And phishing, that was the original one, that's what they started with, and it's like the sport, throw out a line, try and get one hook. That's kind of why they terminologied it phishing. And then finally, one that just very new, quishing is to do with QR codes. So again, frauds can be about absolutely anything, but something to be aware is they do tend to go with current affairs. If there's something in the news, the criminals will jump on it and they'll start sending out fraud and scams in relation to that. And I'll give you some examples on the next page. But I just thought I'd run through some of the signs that a text, a call, or an email could be a scam. So one of them is it could be out of the blue. So you're not expecting it and you get a call. Let's talk about loft installation, for example. Someone just starts to ring you and say, you've had loft installation in the past. That company has been found out to not have installed things properly. We need to come and do a check. So that's random call out of the blue. That can be a sign that it's fraud. But one of the things I would say is victims have said to us in the past that the reason they engaged is they were actually thinking about their loft installation, or if it's an internet service provider, they had an engineer on the way. So just because it's something that you're thinking about, don't necessarily take that as a sign that it's legitimate. Another thing is they'll try and get you to act on urgency. So do it here or there. For example, if the call is someone impersonating your bank, they're going to say to you, we need to get this sorted instantly, straight away, otherwise you're going to lose more money. Now, sometimes it's about thinking about what's actually happening. If it's at your genuine bank, they have no need to create urgency. They've already blocked all the payments going out. They just want to speak to you to check whether or not that's a legitimate payment. So there's no need for any urgency whatsoever. So if anyone's creating urgency, that's a sure sign that it's a scam. And with that goes hand in hand of making you feel panicked and pressure. That all goes with the urgency, as well as secrecy. If someone's telling you not to tell someone, and I'll give you an example when we talk about courier fraud in a little minute, that's another sign that it's likely to be a fraud. Also, if you're getting a call from a trusted or well-known organisation, so the criminals love to target victims and impersonate trusted organisations because it gives a bit of authority. It makes you feel like you need to listen to them. So they tend to impersonate the police, bank, HMRC, your internet providers, things like that. And also, they'll use basic information about you. They'll know your name, your date of birth, account details even. They will have found this information out through something called social engineering, or they've bought it off the dark web, which we talked about earlier. So just because someone knows information about you does not mean they're genuine. And another sure sign for especially text messages and emails is links. They tend to have links in them. Now, what a link does is it can embed an antivirus or malware onto yours. Whereas if you click the link, you could be allowing someone remote access to your device, or they could just put malware on your device so that they could contact you and say, are you having issues with your device? So if there's ever a link in an email or a text message, don't necessarily trust that. Always go and actually confirm with the organisation that it's genuine before. And the reason we say that is doctors and NHS, they still contain links in their text messages and emails regularly, but just give them a quick ring beforehand to find out on that one. One of the things that, and the biggest piece of advice we can give people, to be honest with you, is to screen your calls. I no longer now answer the phone unless I'm expecting it, or if I can see on my phone who it is that's calling. The only difference for me with that is if I'm expecting a medical call, someone from the NHS, because they still call on unknown or withheld numbers. So I'll answer it if I am waiting for that. But as soon as it's not someone I expect, then I will just put the phone down. And that's our biggest piece of advice. The other thing is to always just confirm. So let's say you are waiting for a contractor for your internet, and then you get a call saying your internet's running slow. Don't just speak to them, just say thanks very much, I'll contact you back. And then if you've got a separate phone, use a different phone, or if you haven't, just wait 5 minutes or so. This is if you're getting a call on a landline. And then just contact that organisation, but make sure you never do it on a number they've given you. Always find the number yourself, because criminals are always using tactics tactics to try and help you think that you've done your due diligence. Quishing, something that I haven't got an example of on the next slide though, is basically some of the times, one of the things that we've heard most in Kent is some of the criminals are going around car parks. We haven't had any reports recently, but there was a big spout of it at one point where you have to pay via a QR code, and they were just putting stickers on them. Now, Kent County Council put a lot of messaging out there, so I think that's definitely slowed down. But if you've ever got a QR code on a parking meter, just double check it, make sure there's not a sticker over it or something like that. So just on this slide here is just some examples of some text message and email frauds. So if we look at the email there from Netflix, one of the biggest things to be aware of is if that's on your phone or tablet, it will show that it's from Netflix. But as you can see where I've highlighted that, if you pressed that, this email address would come up. And as you can see, that's a bit gobbledygook. And that's a sign that it is fraud. So have a good look at the messages you're getting. Another big one here you might see in the middle is a WhatsApp text message fraud, and that says, "Hi mum, dad, dropped my phone," or "This is my new number, please delete my old one." And as you can see from the message there, even if you try and do a bit of due diligence, which one are you? They come back with oldest and cutest, and that's enough sometimes to convince people. And then as you can see, what they're going to do is ask you for money. And if you send that money, they will then just continue to do that cycle. They will ask again until you get suspicious on that one. So these are some of the examples of messages here. Now with text messages, if you do get a fraudulent text message, and another one that's been going around recently actually in relation to text messages and to prove that they jump on current affairs is the DWP winter fuel allowance. You get a message to say, click the link to get your allowance. But if you don't know, you get that directly. You don't ever have to do anything for it. But it's just proof that as soon as there's something that the country or anyone's being made aware of, the criminals jump on it straight away. So with text messages, you can now forward them. So instead of just blocking and deleting them, you can forward them to 7726. That'll go to the mobile phone companies and they will then take that number down. So that disrupts the criminals. And the same with emails. You can, if they're in your junk folder, leave them. That's what your junk folder's for. But we're getting a lot more phishing emails in our inbox now. So you can forward them on to report@phishing.gov.uk and the National Cyber Resilience Centre. They'll take those down as well. So it's a really good way to start disrupting the. Another really big one I wanted to touch on quickly is gift card fraud. So you might get something along the lines of, "I can't talk right now, but I need a favour, can you help?" And they leave it as simple as that because they don't want you to pick up the phone and call them. They just want to see who's going to respond. Or they go straight into the example of, "I've just gone away for the weekend," or "I've just gone in hospital for an operation and I forgot to get my grandson a gift card. Any chance you can go and buy one for me? And as soon as I'm home, I'll pay you back." And if you do that, they will then get you to scratch the numbers off the back of the card and provide them. That then means the criminal has access to that money. They tend to go and buy high value goods with that gift card, sell it on, so they've now got money for their criminal activity. So if there's ever a mention of gift card, treat that as fraud. You'll also find in the new year when it starts to get calls from people impersonating HMRC, they say you haven't paid enough tax, you're going to be arrested, go and get some gift cards, and they'll ask for money via gift cards. So although that might sound a little bit obvious to you and I while we're talking about fraud, when they're catching you off guard, they're saying you're going to get arrested and things like that, people do go and buy these gift cards. So yeah, our biggest message is, if anyone mentions gift cards, just treat it as fraud straight away. And one of the things that we use within Kent Police is ABC. So we've now started sharing this message as fraud prevention because it really makes a difference. So never assume the call, email or text is genuine. B, never believe them when they try and convince you. So as you can see on the slide here, sometimes they spoof. What that means to you and me is clone legitimate numbers. So if they can impersonate your bank, they will clone. Let's pick on Barclays. They'll clone Barclays' number. So if you've got a smartphone, it will show Barclays calling. So don't believe them when they try and convince you. And C, always confirm and actually check with a trusted number or the person you know. So if you get that email or that social media message from a friend, then actually give them a quick call and you'll find out that it wasn't them. You'll also actually help them realize they've been hacked so they can start recovering their account as well on that one. So ABC is a really strong message, so I would definitely urge you to start using that and then sharing it with everyone that you know as well. So what I wanted to do is just talk about two of the biggest frauds that are happening in Kent at the moment. So courier fraud is one of them, and I've got a video to play here. Let's hope it works. Can you hear that?
Not yet.
No?
No.
No, okay. I don't know what I've done. I'm not very good with technology, so let's go back there.
Well, you've got digital champions here.
Yeah, you can help me how to do that in the future. But that's quite a long video anyway, so I'll quickly go over courier fraud. What it is you're going to get a call from a police officer. It's a criminal impersonating a police officer, but they will give you a call and say, we believe we've got someone in custody using your bank card. And then that even if you say, I've got my bank card here, they'll say it's been cloned, and then they'll most likely have a very professional Western accent. They'll sound very professional and they'll say, we actually believe there's fraud going on with your bank account, but we think that with your bank, but we think your bank account's being included. Can you help us with an investigation? If you, when they're talking to you, you kind of agree with this, they'll ask you to go to your bank and take out some money. Now, if they've called you on your landline, they'll ask for your mobile number and they'll call on your mobile and they'll say, when you go to the bank, don't tell the bank staff what the money's for because they could be in on it. We don't know who within the bank is involved in this fraud and it could be them. So tell them it's for helping your grandson get a new car or to decorate your spare room or something like that. And then they'll ask to keep you in their pocket. So while you go to the bank, keep me in your pocket so I can hear you. And they do that for one or two reasons. One is a form of intimidation. They've told you what to say and what not to say. And if you think they're listening, then you're likely to do that. But two, they want to get better at what they do. So they want to listen to the bank staff questions, what sort of security questions they ask, when do they start to get suspicious. So if they make any mistakes this time, they won't the next time round. And then if you get that money, sometimes they'll ask you to read all the serial numbers so it looks legitimate and like a proper investigation. And then they'll ask you to pop it in an envelope and a courier will come and collect that. But don't give that money to anyone unless they give you this password and they'll agree a password. And then the courier will come, they'll collect the money. And if that does happen, these victims of fraud will get another call and say, this is working fantastically. We're making progress with this investigation and we've actually put it up to the serious fraud team. Can we do it again? Because we think we're actually going to make headway on this one. And they will continue to do that until you get suspicious or until the banks invoke banking protocol because they're suspicious. Now, I lost my train of thought there, sorry. So yeah, they will continue to do that for this reason. So one of the things that we say is we put a lot of messaging out about this, and we had noticed there was still lots of reports but not very many losses, and the criminals have obviously realized this, so they started changing their MO a little bit, and instead of just making victims go to the bank, they're now making victims go to foreign exchange places, so to get euros and to get dollars, things like that. They're also making them go to pawnbrokers or secondhand jewelry shops and getting expensive watches coins or gold bullion. So we did have a victim of this a couple of weeks ago that lost £100,000, and 37,000 of that was purchased gold bullion. So it's proving that it is happening. Now, I think some of the signs of this is that the police and the banks, we're never going to ask you to lie. And as you can hear from some of the things I was saying, the criminals are trying to get you to create urgency. They're getting you to keep secrecy, making you feel panic, making you feel help with the authority. So there's a lot of signs there that this is fraud. So it's just one to be aware of, that it is happening regularly here in Kent. And then the next one that I wanted to talk about is romance fraud. So romance and friendship. One of the biggest things that we're talking about here in Kent is it's just not romance. A lot of it is people just they think they're making friends, or there's a lot of celebrity impersonation as well. So some of the signs of friendship or relationship fraud are that they'll ask you to move off the app really quickly. So some of the apps that they're using as well, as you can see from here, is Zangi, Telegram, Google Hangouts, sometimes WhatsApp, and we'll go through those a little bit more later. The reason they're doing that, I'll say that in a second, they'll tend to have lots of common interest with you. So they'll mirror your circumstances. If you're recently bereaved, they'll be recently bereaved. They do this so that they can get close to you. There's a term called love bombing, where they get really close, shower you with compliments. That's something that will happen quite regularly. And then there'll always be an excuse for why they can't meet in person or why they can't video chat, things like that. And if your family or friends do start to get suspicious, they will actually start to tell you to keep it a secret, or say you've ended it, you're not speaking to them anymore, because that's a way to keep it to themselves. And likely towards the start of it, they're going to tell you some kind of hard luck story, because the reason they're doing this is when they ask for money, it's not going to be out of the blue. It's going to be something that you have already discussed. So that's something that happens quite regularly. So one of the biggest things that we talk about, because in our role, we do visit victims of romance fraud. Most of the time, these victims of this type of relationship fraud don't believe they're victims. They actually think they're in a genuine relationship, and it's not them that have contacted the police. It's either the bank or their family. So we will go and visit, and we'll try and support people to try and help them realise that they might be a victim of fraud. And one of the biggest things that we talk about is the broken promise cycle. So the criminals will make a promise, I'm going to come over, or I'm going to meet you on this date. They're then going to break that with an excuse, and then they're going to remake it and give another date, and the cycle will continue. So that is something that happens regularly, and we try and explain that to people and share that to friends and family as well, because sometimes seeing things happen that you didn't realise would, or someone said something might happen, it hasn't yet, but then it does, that in itself sometimes gives people an understanding that, yeah, actually I could be a victim of fraud here. So that's a really good thing for you to be aware of, and something that you might be able to share. Another thing we've got here within Kent Police is we created a questionnaire. Now, we don't ask these questions word by word, we filter these into conversation, and then we can actually talk about it at the end and say, like, during our conversation, we've actually talked about some of the questions we've put in a questionnaire, and they've all come to yes. And sometimes this in itself is a sign that the person could be a victim of romance fraud. But the reason we talk about it is it's a very high harm crime. We've not just got the financial aspect, we've got the emotional aspect as well. So it is something that really does affect people. So I'm going to talk about now passwords quickly talk about passwords, because that's something that's really important, and then I'm going to go on to some of the signs and the stigmas of fraud. So one of the things that I would usually ask people is who has the same password for more than one thing, And I tend to, when I'm in a group of people, find that numerous people put their hands up, or some people smirk rather than putting their hands up because they don't want to admit it. But basically, it's really important now. The video I just skipped past showed how easy it is for people to share their passwords, and a lot of people still put things related to them. So some of the numbers from their date of birth, or their favourite football team, or their pet's name, or something like that. And we have to remember, the criminals, they're not guessing your password. They've done lots of social engineering techniques. They've looked throughout the whole internet. They might have bought information from you off the dark web. They're also then putting all the very common passwords in a piece of software, and it can crack that really quickly. So it's so important to have a strong password. We talked about hacking of emails recently in social media. If that happens, the criminals are going to message everyone you know. They'll also try to get in everything that you have, Tesco's, Just Eat, anything that we need a password for these days. So it is important to have a strong password. So do avoid using things that are known to you, and common passwords. On the slide here, there's some of the common passwords. And our biggest piece of advice is to use 3 unrelated words and then put a mixture of numbers and symbols in those too. I did a talk with our Protect officer for cyber recently, and he was talking about passwords and said that if you use something around you, it related to you, they can crack it really quickly. If you use 8 random letters or numbers, it's something like 4 hours, but it was a million years or something if you use the 3 related words. So it's a very strong password that software is struggling to crack on that one. And we would also suggest to use different passwords for different accounts. So for those of you that are comfortable, and I imagine you will on this call, to using technology, then password managers are going to be one of the best options for those. But we do also tell people that aren't happy with software or technology, and a lot of people that are victims of fraud don't feel comfortable with phones, that it's better to write them in a book that you keep safely in your house. Don't ever take out anywhere. Maybe don't use the books that say passwords on it, but write them, and so at least you've got separate passwords. And we will also say, if you can at least have your email address as a completely secure password and different to everything else, that's also going to be beneficial, because if you ever forget any password, you go into your email to reset it. And another safety thing is 2-factor authentication. And that's for those of you that don't know, where you then get either an email or a text with a code, and then it's only you that can get into that device. So it's really important, if something has 2-factor authentication, to use that too. And this is a website, if you're not already aware of it, Have I Been Pwned? Pop your email address in it, and it will tell you if you've ever had a data breach. And I did it. I had 9 data breaches. Most of the information I wasn't too bothered about, because it had things like my date of birth or a username, stuff that's out there anyway. But on one of them, it had my password. And if you can see you've had a data breach and it says password, you just know to change your password straight away. So it's a really good thing to have a look at. Also, some of the things, when we tell people about this, they do suggest some password managers on there as well. So it gives options on that website. So I just want to quickly run through what makes someone susceptible to fraud. And there's lots of different factors. So age can be a factor, a little bit more trusting, or not necessarily used to technology. So criminals are exploiting and using technology to their advantage at the moment. So that can make age be a factor. Mental health and cognitive impairments can also be a factor. You might not, if you're not in the right headspace, you might be struggling and you might not necessarily pick up on something. Or cognitive impairment, you might not remember. So you might be getting a call and you didn't realise you've already had it, or that it's not genuine. Loneliness can be a factor if you're feeling isolated, if you just want to talk, you want to answer the phone, you want to speak to someone because it's the only time in a week that you ever get to speak to someone. So that can be a factor. Low realization, so that kind of goes with some of the bit I was talking about in relation to age there, is if you don't necessarily realize, or if you hadn't have heard of that before, so you don't think that that could be a fraud, that's definitely a factor. Personal circumstances as well, although this can sound strange because with fraud or scams you tend to lose money, but maybe you're struggling financially. So if you're getting someone contacting you to say this investment is, you're gonna just put 20 quid in and you'll make 200 by the end of the week, that could make you want to do it. Or sticking with the victim of investment fraud and you're getting a call to say that they can recover your money, that could make you susceptible, and that goes along with the impact of fraud there. So you've been a victim of fraud and then someone's contacting you to say that you're getting your money back. I think the point of this slide just shows that absolutely anyone can be a victim of fraud. And then some of the indicators of the risks of fraud. So I thought this would be beneficial for you because although some of these that I'm going to talk about you won't necessarily see because people are coming to you, you might hear it in conversation, and it's just a little bit of a sign that this person could be a victim of fraud. So if you're helping with devices and you notice that there's lots of messages either from the same person or multiple different people, or there's certain apps, so Zangi, Telegram, Google Hangouts. Zangi's a big one in relationship fraud at the moment. And when we've spoken to people before, no one I know uses it. So I think that's a bit of a sign that you can kind of talk about a little bit. Why have you got this app? Who do you use it for? Does anyone else you know actually use it? So that's a little bit of something that you can talk through with people. Scam mail, sometimes that's a really big sign of a person might be victim of fraud. So although you might not necessarily see that, if someone's talking about getting lots of posts, talking about getting lottery letters and things like that, that could be an indicator to a risk of fraud. Constant calls or contact. So even if you're there trying to help someone out and they're continuing to get calls or they keep looking at their phone, things like that, that could be a sign. If they're talking about regularly getting people come into their house, doing their gutters, doing their drive. They had someone recently who mentioned that they had a roof tile and they've got this person trying to say that it's more money than it was. Again, that's a sign that they could be a victim of fraud, but also just vulnerable to it. And if they talk about living conditions, again, that could be a sign. If they talk about having like lots of things or hoarding, if they talk about being uncomfortable, like not having enough support, all things like that. And then things just to think about is if they do live alone, if they talk about being online but don't necessarily know too much about it, or if they talk about having or not having support from friends, families or neighbours. These are all just indicators that you can think about when you're speaking to people to see whether or not there's a possible risk for them being a victim of fraud. And then some of the things that we can do to help prevent fraud. So knowledge, awareness and education. So just being aware of the current fraud trends. So talking about it ultimately. People know about the hi mum dad text now because we talk about it. So don't keep quiet. If you hear of anything, share it. That makes such a big difference. Also, just being aware of the advancements. So things like AI and using ChatGPT. We used to say about video calls in relationship fraud, like why haven't you got one? That's a sign. Actually, now they get them, because you can make a still image, talk and move. So knowing that just because you're getting information, realizing that AI is being used is something that's important and will help protect us. Keeping the conversations open, just like I was saying there. So let's start talking about it more, change that stigma. Good online security, we've just talked about strong passwords and two-factor authentication, signposting and support. So you'll now know our role. You're going to have our email address. We're going to talk about some more places in a second. So being able to know about that is going to help. And then call blockers, if anyone has a landline only and they're really struggling with the impact of phone scams. In Kent Police, we have some funded call blockers, so we can go and install them to people that may be that already are victims of phone scams. But if you ever have someone that could benefit from that, just reaching out to us to discuss a little bit more on that one. We also do a fraud alert system. So you can see this poster here, My Community Voice. We will put a fraud alerts out onto this service. So you can sign up to this, and then once a week, once a fortnight, we put out 5 alerts with the different fraud types that are happening in Kent and different ways that you can protect yourself. Or if something's just happening and it's happening in an area, we'll just go and do it straight away as well. So sign up to that, because you can be aware of the different types of frauds that are happening and when they happen as well. And again, that's something that you can share with people. And then some of the different support services out there for victims of fraud are just shown on here. The latest one that's going to pick up is Ask Silver. Oh, it didn't come. Ask Silver, there you go. It's a new service. So if you get a text, an email, if you're on a website, you can upload it to Ask Silver and it will tell you if it's thinks it's genuine or if it thinks it's a scam. So that's a really good one to know. And you've got victim support up there as well. If there's any romance fraud or friendship fraud victims out there, Kent Victim Support have actually set up a new thing called a romance fraud peer support group. So they're running some educational sessions, but they're also doing a peer support group so that you can speak to people that have actually been a victim of a similar type of crime, and sometimes that's really helping victims. But it also means there's a bespoke support officer that knows a lot about that type of fraud that can help out as well, which is really, really nice. And then finally, just ensuring people are reporting every fraud. So action fraud is where they report fraud. If it's romance fraud and the person's in denial, report it to Kent Police on 101 or online, and then it will come to us and we might be able to support that. But all the types of fraud that we've talked about today, they would report that to you, or they report that to action fraud, and you can either do that online or via the telephone number. And then you've got the emails and text message reporting methods there as well. The only thing that I didn't put in there is the new number for contacting your bank's fraud department. So if you ever are concerned that there is fraud on your account, or you've lost your card and you're not sure if someone spent on it, you can call the number 159 and that you say the name of your bank, and then you are straight through to your bank on that one. Really good number. It's 159, so it's easy to remember, and it just gets you straight through to the bank without having to faff about different types of what department you need to go to. So if you're not aware of that, please share that with everyone as well. And that's everything. And I think I got there just in time as well, which is good.
Fantastic. Couple of minutes to spare.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. That was really